Alright, so we have a little bit more in-depth information today in regards to the battle mechanics for Cait Sith, this coming to us from Game Informer, and we did cover some brief stuff just the other day, but it wasn't as in-depth as it is today. So, if any of that sounds cool to you, feel free to click the like button, and if you're new here and you'd like to stick around, you can subscribe as well. It's always appreciated. Now, just a heads up, unfortunately there really isn't all that much footage out there of Cait Sith. There's a few battle clips and some random cutscene stuff in the trailer, so a lot of what you're going to see in this video is just random B-roll footage from either gameplay, from other characters, or footage from the trailers. So unfortunately, the things you see will not always line up with what we're talking about from the article, but that's just kind of the situation right now. I'm just pulling from what I got right now. But getting to the article itself, Game Informer sat down with the game's director, Naoki Hamaguchi, as well as the game's battle director, Teruki Endo, to talk a little bit more in depth about Cait Sith and how he's going to control in this game and what really inspired his mechanics and his moveset. Hamaguchi goes on to say, for Cait Sith, we wanted to keep intact the really fun elements from the original, like the dice attacks and the luck components in his battle play. That's shown in Rebirth as well. Of course, given its very cute appearance, it's going to have more quirky and extravagant fighting style as opposed to the more orthodox battle style of Cloud, which I very much appreciate. I know Cait Sith was a character that even myself, a lot of us, we didn't really use in the original Final Fantasy VII, and he did have some rather interesting mechanics with the dice roll ability, and I think the moment I did the dice roll and I ended up killing my entire party was the moment I realized as a kid, I don't think I'm going to use this character anymore. So he kind of did come off as a little confusing. He wasn't the most easy character to have in your party in terms of like personality, but I think they're kind of changing some of that stuff up in Rebirth, and they're going to make him not necessarily a tolerable character, but a character that we're going to actually like this time around, because they've done some pretty incredible stuff so far with the story stuff and how they're writing out their characters. And again, I praise the localization team because the writing has been so good so far in my personal opinion. Teruki Endo then follows up by saying it really goes back to looking at and analyzing what is at the core of these characters going back to the original. For Cait Sith, there are these luck-based abilities. We really wanted to express these in Rebirth. Starting from there, we would then build upon it with commands and actions we felt were suitable for this character. It's not just the case for new additions like Cait Sith or Red 13, but the same games for other characters like Cloud or Barret. Seeing what fighting style or battle experience players think of or imagine when playing as Cloud or Barret, and then analyzing this on a more micro level, let us express it as we do in Rebirth, which is one of the aspects of combat that I think is brilliant. You know, you could have easily just had these characters and they all have stock fighting animations, but they really took the personality and the core of who these characters are into consideration when considering their battle style and their gameplay. You know, Cloud again is that orthodox fighter. He gets in there with the Buster Sword and he can either be fast or a little bit slower and more powerful. And then you've got Barret, the big guy of the group who's a little gruff on the outside, but on the inside, he's kind of a teddy bear, but he's the group tank. He's the ranged guy. He can provide support to protect the other party members, and that's who Barret is as a character. He's very protective. Tifa is obviously the martial arts person, and she gets in there and does these super cool flippy and dippy type of combos that are, you know, agility based and look beautiful in action. You've got Aerith, who kind of does like the Cirque du Soleil kind of stuff with her staff and fighting at a distance, but also doing the ranged magic attack, and also being the group healer. That very much kind of goes down to the core of who Aerith is as a character. And Red 13, obviously, we have yet to really explore, but again, he has that animalistic quality to him, because again, he is a lab rat dog. He's going to fight with his claws and be kind of feral with it, but he's also kind of reserved as a character in certain points of the story, but giving him that vengeance mode, allowing him to kind of unleash that inner animal, is really awesome. And for Cait Sith, again, he comes from the Gold Saucer. He's like a casino cat. So it makes sense to have those kind of casino qualities into his gameplay and have him be a little wacky at times because he is a cat first and foremost. So the fact that they take into consideration all of the character traits and put them into the gameplay, I very much appreciate, and I think that is one of the shining spots for sure of the remake trilogy so far. Now, as for Cait Sith, again, Cait Sith can control two different ways. There's the standard version where you're just controlling the kitty. He has a really interesting move called the Kitty Wallop, which I think is adorable. And he also has another luck-based ability called Lucky Roll. And of course, you can summon a big chubby Moogle to assist you in battle. Hamaguchi goes on to say, by calling a Moogle into battle, Cait Sith's battle style will change. You can jump off and control Cait on your own. In that case, the Moogle is just an AI character that battles on its own. When the HP is depleted to 0, it disappears, but you can call it again and make it appear again. There are attacks that you can only do when you're solo and not on the Moogle, but there are some that you can only do when you're riding it. And I brought this up in our previous video where they just kind of talk about the basic stuff of Cait Sith, but there's probably going to be moments in battle where it's more advantageous to jump off of the Moogle and kind of let the Moogle do its own thing while you focus on the singular side of Cait Sith. And there's probably going to be moments where it's better to be riding the Moogle in battle. But having the different playstyles is incredibly interesting. The one thing that I am kind of curious about is that they seemingly kind of make it sound like you can just summon a new Moogle whenever you want. So I'm wondering if maybe there's a cooldown there, or if it's going to cost a specific amount of, MP in battle that might keep you from just kind of spamming the summon on that Moogle once it disappears. But either way, having these different options to fight in battle is super refreshing, and it's going to add a really interesting layer of strategy to combat if Cait Sith is in your party. Of course, as we mentioned in our previous video, he has an ability called the Moogle Mine, which shoots off a bunch of mines throughout the battlefield, and they'll explode if an enemy gets close to them or steps on them. So it's going to be a really nice AoE type of attack, which again, that stuff comes in handy in these types of games, especially in 7 Remake. There's so many instances where you're fighting large groups of enemies. So to have Cait Sith come in as kind of like this luck-based tank who can do AoE damage is super cool. And then to end things, they talk about the synergy ability between Cloud and Cait Sith. Now, they don't give the name of the attack, but the description of it, again, it's one of those things that I need to see in person. But Cait Sith summons a Moogle. That Moogle grabs Cloud's Buster Sword. Cloud jumps on the back of the Moogle, and they ride into battle together as the Moogle uses the Buster Sword for a big ol' attack. It sounds super silly and ridiculous, and as I mentioned in our previous video, that's Final Fantasy VII in a nutshell. It can have these moments where things are really super and goofy and over the top, but it can also have those really dark, serious moments where characters are really just kind of expressing themselves or going through some really rough things within the story. It becomes a really interesting kind of scenario where I'm really curious to see how they balance that in Rebirth, because I thought they did a pretty good job in Remake. You had the crazy wall market stuff and the Honeybee Inn stuff, and there was the gym area too where you could work out with the really flamboyant gym bros, but then you also had like the darker side of like this really creepy Don Corneo guy who just brings all of these women into his mansion and does these horrible things to them, and then shortly afterwards the party finds out that the Sector 7 plate's going to be dropped. So again, I thought they balanced all of that stuff really well in Remake, so I'm curious to see how they do it in Rebirth, and I'm even more curious to see more footage of Cait Sith in battle. He sounds like he's not just going to be this simple one-note character that you bring in for a dice roll gimmick. It sounds like he's going to have a lot more depth to him than I think I even imagined prior. And again, I greatly appreciate that they're taking the time to take the character aspects of all of these characters and putting them into the gameplay and incorporating it that way. I think it makes the characters even more special, but again, it allows for more player expression, which is a big thing that Naoki Hamaguchi has been pushing for with a lot of the interviews he's done for Rebirth. And I know he did say in Game Informer that he is super confident about this game and very proud of it, and he thinks it's some of the best work he's ever done. So I'm very curious. Again, we gotta keep our hype levels in check here. I myself am very excited. I don't think there's too much they can do to turn me off from this game, but for me, that's just for me personally. For everyone else out there, of course, keep your expectations in check. I don't want to be one of those content creators that like hypes you up to oblivion to say that this is going to be the greatest game ever, and then it comes out and you're disappointed. We all have to set our expectation levels accordingly depending on how we are as people, but I personally am very excited. And with that being said, that is the video. I'm Curious Corduroy. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think so far of Cait Sith? And I want to know two things. What was your original impression of Cait Sith from the original Final Fantasy VII? Was he somebody that you even used in the original game? Did you not like him? And after seeing what they're doing with him in Rebirth, are you more curious to explore him not just as a playable character, but as a character in general in terms of his actual character development and where they could place him in the story? I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.